Namaste and welcome to Itihasdhir with me, Aditi Joshi, and my co-host Aditya Saraf. Itihasdhir is a platform which is dedicated to preserving the cultural, civilizational, and philosophical legacy of Bharat. Today, we are joined once again by Mr. Kanchan Banerjee, who's the author of the groundbreaking work, The Crash of a Civilization, and you can all get your copies on Amazon as well as on Kindle. The book is a bold, sweeping analysis of how Bharat's civilizational continuity was attacked first by theological invasions, then by colonial conquest, and now through intellectual subversion. Welcome to Itihasdhir, Kanchan sir. So I wanted
Namaste.
to go ahead and I want to ask my first question is I want to start with the core thesis that what, according to you, constitutes as a civilizational crash? Is it merely political defeat, or does it involve something deeper, like a spiritual or an epistemic disintegration?
First of all, thank you for having me again, second time, and thanks to all the viewers or listeners of this podcast as well. As I, as we have discussed in the first interview, that our civilizational key foundation of our civilization, that is Bharat, is Dharma, and Dharma is sustenance and sustainability, principles of sustainability. And when some of the ideologies, some of the philosophies of people from outside of Bharat, when they came to Bharat, they did not have this concept how to protect things. So it was based on some greed and some uh, religious fervor. They wanted to conquer this nation, so they basically mixed greed with religion. And as the Romans used Christianity as a religion, as a vehicle to conquer the world, all the crusades happened. Then later on came with the Islamic, the jihadist invasions. So it was both for material greed and religious jealousy, zealotry. Basically, uh, they they came to Bharat without knowing this civilization has developed to a level which no other civilization can compare.
So, sir, in your book, you essentially use a civilizational lens rather than a political one or a nationalistic one. So, could you elaborate for us on the essential civilizational elements, really, of Bharat that have differentiated it from civilizations like Persia or the ancient Egypt, which have collapsed completely?
A very important question you have raised. So first of all, the question Aditi ji asked, let's go back to that little bit more.
Hmm.
That the crash that has happened to the Bharatiya civilization on multiple fronts. One is that, as we know today, even in 1947, the land actually was broken into three parts. It was just less than a century ago. And prior to that, we have lost land continuously. Uh, Parts of Iran, parts of Afghanistan, today's Pakistan, and the entire South Asian subcontinent. A lot of this land mass was part of Bharat, the greater Bharat, not necessarily fully politically controlled, but culturally they were all very much well connected and related. So that's a actual physical crash of a civilization, loss of lands. Then the second part was about loss of our heritage. So the number of cities that we had from Takshashila to Vikramshila to Nalanda, they were all basically destroyed. So the knowledge society that we were, the civilizational foundation knowledge, that was also destroyed. Then the pursuit for truth in the spiritual realm spiritual or adhatic realm, that also was kind of seized. And the society as a whole, that the hallmark of Sanatan Shabhata, Sanatan Dharma is continual renewal and continual reformation, re-engineering of society and politics. That also stopped because of these invasions. So our society became stagnant. Even till today, we follow certain norms that are not Indic, not Hindu or Bharatiya, you can say. So the crash was on many fronts. So now the question, Aditya ji, you asked, what was the question? I forgot actually. If you
How
please repeat.
how yeah, how are we different in civilizational elements and
Okay,
in our core civilizational terms?
right. And it's very simple, very clear that our rishis for thousands of years, they envisioned a world where we will live peacefully and with cooperation, where they have very clearly defined the role of society, role of individuals, role of the king. So, for example, our dharma as citizen, our dharma as a brother, sister, daughter, we have very well defined dharma, and then for the raja or the ruler. So, in other societies, it was probably there, some rule of law was there, but it was not very well defined. Number one. Number two, the foundation that they had, so whether it's Greeks or Persians or um, Persians, I will slightly differ on that. The Egyptian, the Mesopotamian, so all these civilizations, they have each one had unique reason to collapse. But the key difference is that this, again, back to this dharma based civilization, unless you have certain foundations that are necessary for a society or a civilization or a kingdom to have, many of them lacked those key elements, such as dharma based foundation. The second, about Parsha, uh, though we disagree with William Jones on the Aryan invasion theory, but William Jones did a great job by traveling throughout Middle East and then coming to Calcutta. He has documented certain things, and he is the first one who told us that the Parsha was actually ruled by Hindu kings. And he found so much similarities between the Persian language, the old Persian language, the Avesta, and the, that tells us that Persia was very much influenced by. I mean, there are many more evidence now. Persia was very much closer to Bharat, and it was decimated by uh, mostly by the Islamic jihads. So, and it has happened to many more nations in the world, many more countries, many more civilizations were destroyed through these crusades and jihads because they did not have this solid structure in the society where where you have the kshatriyas very well defined. They will protect the society and the country, um, and the people who all the different occupations and jatis, they were so well organized that even even during the British period, uh, the missionaries could not convert India from its core, which is happening today, unfortunately. But these are some of the key strengths we had. That's why we survived, but others did not. And not to forget the thousands and thousands of heroes and heroines who fought these battles with valor. And sometimes we lost, but most of the times we won. But sometimes we lost, but those losses, just like Raja Prithviraj Chauhan's defeat in the second battle of Tarain, that was a decisive battle. But most of the time we won. But our history books tell the other way.
So, so you talk about why you wrote this book as someone who is not been a student of history. So, firstly, I'm very intrigued in how you have opened the book because it starts far before the invasions of India. It starts with the history of early Islam. So, why did you choose to begin the civilizational chronicle with Arabia in the post Prophet Muhammad era?
Even before that, I
Hmm.
start with Persian, the
Yes.
Zoroastrian civilization, and very clear reason. Those who have played a role in destroying the civilization or influencing the civilization, first we need to know them. That's called Purva Paksh. You need to know who they are that has done something. So I took a lot of time to research on these ideas and other civilizations and forces that came in contact with us either through trade or war or invasion. So in order to know how the world was before this rise of Christianity and Islam, and even Judaism. How was it? How's the world, and how was India? So I did a comparative study to understand. And again, as you started in this conversation, that I am not a historian. I'm rather a computer scientist. Why I got into always had this question in mind that why I heard from childhood that India was a great civilization, uh, one of the best in the world. When I came to America, actually, one of my Greek professors of computer science, so I met her and she said, she asked me, "Are you from India?" I said, "Yes." And she almost touched my feet, saying that you are the best civilization. So even today, some educated people remember that India was great. So my question was why it was great and why the downfall. So in that quest, I started studying
Hmm.
history, and I found that this there's a lot of wrong information that was given by the colonial historians, and then uh, the Marxist historians in India, and also some of the Islamist historians. They all have a biased view of our Itihas, and then even today it continues. Unfortunately, even today, uh, there is supposed to be a nationalistic government in Delhi, but I don't see huge changes made in the education curriculum that will correct the history that the way it should be. So that this is my humble effort to educate our generation, next generation, to to not that I have put all the facts together. I may be wrong in places, but I want the next generation to be intrigued, to do more research, and come up with facts and present it to the world.
So, sir, while writing your book, in your assessment, how did the theological underpinnings of Islam, particularly there are a lot of doctrines, so jihad, Dar al-Islam, the exclusivism that exists within the fold, the active discrimination between Muslim and non-Muslim or kafirs, directly shape the political and military strategies that they used in India?
It's very clear from at least this part is written and documented by uh, the Muslim chroniclers and historians themselves. For example, there were a lot of debate on Babur, and an attempt to make Babur a hero, and Babur himself was a Ghazi. Who is a Ghazi? In his Babarnama, he very clearly says that I have killed X number of Hindus on such and such day, and thus I became a Ghazi. Now, if this is coming from religious texts, um, and which inspires people that if you do this kind of destruction of people and societies and religious places of other people, and you kill people, there is a chance that you will go to the so-called heaven, and there are a lot of things waiting for you. So once this type of mindset is created from childhood, um, they are ought to do damage to the world. So the starting from, so a lot of communist or rather Marxist historians would say that all these invaders came to loot and to, for wealth. Yes, of course, that was the first motive. But then they were following uh, certain sect of Islam that only hated non-Muslim people, and they wanted to destroy. Um, but as you know that this apart from Babur, Aurangzeb did lot of damage to our civilization, and he was a devout Muslim, and he is one of the best kings of India because he followed Islam to the core, and even he did the sewing of his own cap. So these are the images have been created that, so if someone is following Islam through the book and doing all these distractions, then he must be following some ideology that is damaging. And same thing, if you should not forget about Goa Inquisitions. The Portuguese Christian missionaries, they did a lot of destruction and killing and deaths based on this theological idea that anyone who's not believing in Jesus Christ or Bible, uh, basically blasphemy, not even believing. So they were punished for that. So many of these things happen because of some ideologies from sanctioned by certain books, apparently, that they destroyed a lot of things.
So, Kanchan, speaking of Ghazi, how do you view the Ghaznavid and the Ghurid invasions in civilizational terms? Because we know that they were not material plunders at all. They were ideological wars of conversion, of erasure. So, how would you describe those?
I mean, it's the same thing. This uh, from Timur to Ghaznavi to Ghori and all these people, they come as looters and they destroy things, and at the same time they convert people in thousands. Uh, so, for example, even Abdali, um, after the last battle of Panipat, the third battle of Panipat, where um, we had the Mughal forces uh, by chance got defeated. Otherwise, it was a win situation, but within internal because of internal problems, we lost that war. So even Abdali took thousands of slaves, took thousands of our women folk to sell in the slave market, and the children. And many people have forgotten in Balochistan there are uh, many groups of people. They belong to this Maharashtra soldiers who belong to that Maratha army at that time from Pune area. So they were captured and sold into the slave markets. So from Ghazni to Ahmad Shah Abdali, these are all invaders um, with some religious zeal to convert. Very few exceptions you will find. Even Akbar the Great, so-called Akbar the Great, I don't know who coined this term. Why, there are a lot of misinformation about Akbar. Akbar was one of the most cruel persons, and a lot of evidence is coming out today. uh, and we just our historians whitewashed all these atrocities happened to us. So very few exceptions where they did not use religious beliefs.
Like when we were taught history, because I am a student of history, so we had medieval Indian history, and we were just purely taught about the Mughal Empire, and there was this 115 mark question which had to come, which was on the religious policies of Akbar. And we
Mm,
were just told that,
mhm.
he started the Deen Ilahi and it was so good. And he was like, he was the best thing to have happened to India. And there was like, and never like, so there was this one time we touched upon this thing that, he used to, like, after the Battle of Chittor, he had beheaded all the soldiers and he had made a tar out of their heads. And our teacher said, Nahi, nahi, wo to sirf hearsay hai. He was a very nice person. So the battles just happened because the Hindus didn't get along like amongst themselves. So they wanted to fight. And he was just helping his side of the people. So it had nothing like no religious sanctions to it at all.
Right. So you're right. So this is still taught in our history books. Um, I forget the name of the book. That was a English lady wrote a book. I may still have it, but it says the title of the book is Akbar the Great, but she gives a lot of details of of Akbar's cruelty, and how she used to go at at night dressed up in women's clothes and go to the Mina Bazaar and uh, and buy women from there. And his harem was also quite big, and that was
Yeah.
another tradition they created. I don't want to get into too much details into Akbar. It's in my book. A lot of references are
Yeah.
given. It's a myth that Akbar was that great. He may be slightly different than Babur or Aurangzeb, but during his time, a lot of things happened. As you mentioned, the Chitor, a lot of evidence is there. There's nobody can deny this evidence anymore, and that's why new generation of historians and younger generation researchers should come up and present these facts. And so I just scratched the surface in this book. Still it became a, a thick book, but a lot of evidence is hidden, or what they made sure that we don't know about it. So yeah, we need to learn more about our past than these Marxist historians have presented.
So my question is somewhat related to something we talked about in the last episode as well. You've talked about temple destruction in your book, and it is not an isolated act of war. You describe it as an active act of civilizational decapitation. So, could you elaborate on the civilizational meaning of a temple in the Hindu society, and why was their destruction so catastrophic?
Very good point. If you go through my book, there's a chapter on the centers of excellence or universities or learning centers of learning. So I have probably listed about 20 of them. Most
Mm.
people are familiar with Takshashila, Nalanda, maybe Vikramshila, but in my opinion, there are at least 100 such centers of learning which we don't have even traces of, because the Pal kings talk about 50 institutes they started, and I can trace only 7. So there are so many institutes. So now all these institutes had both sides, as we discussed in the last episode, the material side and the adhyatmic side. So these institutes had studies uh, of scriptures, of Vedas and Upanishads, and that's one side, and always had a temple uh, within it. It's complex. Even Nalanda, as you know, it it sounds like it was a Buddha Vihar, but it had discussion on all subjects, including the Vedas. Um, so, so in Bharat, these mandirs, wherever there's a standalone mandir also that is not part of an institute, they also had learning of different subjects. And one other fact that people forget, um, we are just learning that these mandirs had so much wealth, um, and gold and diamonds and jewelry and lot of things they used to have. Now, recently you may have read, starting with Sanjeev Sanyal, that these temples were also banking institutes. They used to, so think about it. The knowledge system that we had, search for truth, discoveries of new things, develop technology, and sell it to the world, manufacture and sell it to the world. That is what America has been doing for last roughly 50 years. So Bharat did that for 1,000 years, maybe 2,000 years. We had these institutes where the inventions happened. We had manufacturing hubs all over Bharat, from Bengal all the way to Kolhapur, Pune, and all these areas. We used to manufacture so many things and sell it to the world. So these mandirs were also part of that. So those traders, to get seed money, many times they go to the mandir, and they used to get the funding from them, invest and do invention and also trade. So mandirs were on one hand adhyatmic centers, the other hand the center for prosperity, where wealth is there. And when these mandirs are attached to an university, it is even more important. So what these uh, invaders did, we know about Khilji's story about destroying Nalanda. So they had no idea of this knowledge system. They're barbarians, basically. They are barbarians, and we gathered this knowledge, especially in Nalanda, for centuries. All the manuscripts of different books were destroyed in one day, and it was gathered through centuries. Same with Takshashila. Um, so all these centers of excellence and the mandirs together. And then the third part that I must mention, and I think I may have talked about it in the last episode, that this Sanatan idea of Sanatan is renewal, continual cleansing and renewal of your society. And for that, Kumbh Mela was one place where all the great leaders from all over Bharat used to come and discuss current state of affairs of the nation and society, and they would give some new uh, direction to the society. Every 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, they would come. Similarly, these mandirs and these institutes also did this, and religious or adhyatmic leaders, Shankaracharyas, they would give guidance to people, like when things are bad, you do this or you don't do that. That stopped. When the mandir is not there, what do you do? And one thing most people probably don't think about it. I was shocked when Swami Vivekananda, once I was reading, he says that bhakti is great. Bhakti is one path, but it has a painful history. When the invasions happening, when the mandirs are gone, how do you keep your adhyatmic practice? Basically within yourself. And that's how bhakti, from Kabir to all the great saints were born in the bhakti movement, all the way to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we survive because of these saints. Our adhyatmikata survived because of these saints, including Tulsidas. So mandirs were gone, and what do you do? And another example I want to give is that people from Bharat who went in the what you call bonded laborers to the Caribbean countries, the West
Yeah.
Indies, Fiji, and Mauritius. When they went there, they didn't have a mandir. They carried this bhakti in them. So I find whenever I meet them, I find they have preserved 200-year-old history of Bharat in them. So what we have done, we lost the old Gyan Yog, Gyan Marg, the 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 marg of science, research. All this we lost during this period. So it is a great loss for not for Bharat, but for the whole world.
So Kanchan sir, do you also think that like the reason like as you mentioned that the people who were taken abroad or they were sent abroad for indentured labor, they have somehow preserved it. So, but do you think that back here, like in our own motherland, that forced conversions, jizya, and the status of dhimmi play, like it somehow shaped the cultural map in the country, and also because like Islam wiped out the civilizations in almost all the places that it took over, whether it's Persia or Central Asia or even the Byzantines. But in spite of being subjected to centuries of rule, India or Bharat has still retained some of its dharmic fabric even though it's now merged. So do you think that because of the forced conversions, it somehow affected the psychology of the ones who were like stayed behind in Bharat?
Very much. It has impacted our psychology, our even our genetics, and that's why we are still suffering a lot. And the impact that we had in culture
Hmm.
is enormous. Know that barkha or parda is a practice that's brought by um, Islam into India. We did not have this parda. Women were free. Women had all the freedom to study and do anything they wanted to do. But this parda came into us. This is one example. In terms of divinity, I mentioned last time that God fearing this word, why one should fear Ishwar or Bhagavan. Bhagavan is there to give blessings. This is another
Hmm.
example that we have influenced by, and there are so many words that we use, including religion and God, and so many other words we use. Even I found some of the political leaders, Hindu leaders, for someone's death, rest in peace. As you know,
They
it's
don't rest in peace.
it's an Abrahamic. We
Hmm.
don't, because it is meant for those who are
Hmm.
buried, and think about it, they're resting. What is the tradition? It says there will be a judgment day when they'll be resurrected from dead, and there'll be judgment by by this so-called God. We don't have this tradition, so why someone should use rest in peace? So many in the book I have given many of these Abrahamic and colonial words. I mean, there's a big list of them, and that we Hindus should avoid using. So the impact has been enormous in the society. Another example I want to give, um, do you know that? So wedding is one of the most important ceremonies, samskaras in Hindu Dharma.
Hmm. Hmm.
In South, it is ceremony happens during the morning time. The main ceremony is daytime, morning time. Why is it so in northern and eastern Bharat? Have you ever
Because
asked?
they used to take away the bride and the bridal party, they used to attack and take the women, and it was
Exactly.
also good. Yes.
So see how it has impacted us, our psyche. Then the second
Hmm.
part, which I may have discussed in the last session, I don't remember, is the genetic and psychological effect. The what researchers have found that in African countries where there were genocides, they have found that the trauma of genocide, the violence that carried through up to now, 3 generations, and it manifests in the future generation what happened in the past. My hypothesis is this, that Hindus behave in a cowardly way in most cases, even now in Bangladesh, in Bengal, in other parts of Bharat. They don't stand up for justice. They don't fight for their rights against any religious what you call deprivation, discrimination. Part of the reason, in my opinion, that we have become very docile to hostile situations is that genetic influence, the trauma that we all went through for generations. Thousands of our people died in battles. Women were captured and sold in the slave markets, including little children. That trauma actually hasn't gone away. It's like, scientifically speaking, that trauma remains in us, and that manifests psychologically in this way. There is something called fight or flight syndrome in psychology. So in a life-threatening situation, they used to say fight with the enemy, or you just run away, flight. And they added a new thing called freeze, like you just pretend that nothing is going to happen. You surrender, basically. Um, so now they have added a new F in these 3 Fs, is fawn, Fawn. Psychologists have added. Fawn means you appease the adversary to save your life or your property. So in Bharat, we can see this pure manifestation of this genetic, epigenetic change that has happened during these thousands of years. Just imagine, you know, the Tower of Skulls. They will kill thousands of innocent Hindus, not just soldiers, innocent Hindus. And that was Babur actually used to do that. Aurangzeb did that. Ghori did that. So Tower of Skulls when you enter the city, heads and skulls. What a trauma it is to see. And it doesn't go away. It's like very subtly, it remains in your samskar, as a samskar, it remains in your genetics, epigenetics. So we have that effect till today. Till today, we are suffering from these things, and we have to come out of that. And there are ways to do that, but we are not there yet.
So, sir, your book essentially also, when we're talking about kind of uh, barbarism that we've suffered, highlights Hindu resistance from Bappa Rawal to the Vijayanagar Empire to Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Why have these stories been systematically downplayed in the mainstream historiography?
Very simple reason. But before that, let me share with the audience the period that is most glorified in our history books are the Mughal periods and the Sultanate periods in Delhi. Delhi Sultanate started in 1206 and ended in 1526 with Babur, 320 years. Mughals, basically 1526 to death of Aurangzeb, when basically Mughal Empire, 1707, roughly 181 years. And for Bharat's thousands of years of history, this 500 years is really nothing. And then it is just Delhi. And I have gone into details about history of Delhi. Delhi was not an important place after Mahabharata period. It was not that great, even if you think of Lahore, Lahore was more prosperous during these invasions, which was part of Bharat. The entire south were much prosperous. Magad was prosperous. Why they settled in Delhi? And then this Delhi Sultanate became, it was made that as if Delhi was the most important place on earth. It was not. And until the Mughals, this battles happened, a lot of people did not even know the Mughals existed, or the Sultanate. They were even less effective. Their actual territory, if you look at it, was much less than one can imagine. The way we are taught that as if entire Bharat was ruled by the Sultans, Delhi Sultans, as if entire Bharat was ruled by the Mughals. Never, never was one time when they ruled entire Bharat. Even forget about it. When Iltutmish was there, his territory was I think, I forget the actual number, 300 kilometers near Delhi. That's it. And that was
it's
again
just this very limited area, and
limited
he
area.
used to, yes, very limited. वो specifically वो जो not even till Mehengarh Fort.
And now you look at the other dynasties and kings. The longest lasting dynasty in the world, whole world, is the Chola dynasty. 1500 years, 300 BC to 1279. The Cheras in Kerala, 1200 years. The Pandyas, almost 1000 in Assam, Ahom dynasty was about 600 years. Even in Bengal, the Pal dynasty was about 500 years. So why, the question, back to this question, why we are told that this is, we never taught this part of history, that the Cholas existed, the Cheras, the Ahams.
I'm sorry, I'm cutting you. Even for like regional history, like, so I come from Uttarakhand. We had dynasties that ruled for like more than 600 years, and like I came to know about them recently. We were never taught about any of those dynasties. These were dynasties that fought back from these Mughals. They didn't let them come near the territories and the borders, but there's no, and if you look for them in any written source, it will be if some regional history writer has written about it on their own accord, so you will find sources for it. Otherwise there's no information about them.
And the reason is our Marxist and Islamist historians. They basically, including Nehru himself, they tried to whitewash all the atrocities done by the invaders and Islamist invaders. So it is a very good attempt to whitewash their atrocities, and in order to do that, Nehru appointed the first education minister of Bharat, Abul Kalam Azad, who was not even educated in the West in our modern sense. He was a Maulana. He was born in Makkah and studied Islamic studies. Now, once he got a chance to oversee the history of Bharat, he made sure that, and others, I mean, and then the Marxists collaborated with them, that the history, the atrocities of these invaders, occupiers, rulers should be whitewashed. And that's why they got more glorified pages in history books than rest of the history of Bharat. This 320 and 180 years of history is very limited time and limited region of Bharat, and they glorified it, and it's still going on. Even you can see that struggle going on to find out about the great Shiva temple in Varanasi. Till today, these Islamist historians are trying to say, the Marxist historians are trying to say that no, there was no temple. Are bhai, you can see it right there. You don't have to do any digging, no archaeological. You can see this was a mandir. And for with the Babri structure, how long these Marxist historians and some of the Islamist historians, they were not doing anything until our archaeologists actually dug it and found out, including Bibi Lal and KK Muhammad. They actually gave evidence, still they would not accept it. So this is the arrogance, this is the influence they had, and still some of them do have in our history, writing our history. So it's a very biased history, and we need to come out of that as soon as possible. Sooner we do is better for the psyche of the nation.
So, Kanchan sir, I essentially want to ask a counter question to this. That why do Hindus hesitate to critique this? Is it just that one F with like is it the tendency to fawn that is making them hesitant to actually stand up against this? Because there are quite a few who actually take up all arms and they're all ready to like make a lot of noise about it. But then you'll see the tier one, so to say, Hindus who will just prefer sitting quietly about it.
The history of mankind is that only few make a big difference. Only some leaders, they make huge difference, then the masses follow. So we may not have come to a point where the critical mass that has not come. There are many things are happening. Many of the contemporary researchers and writers um, are making difference, but the critical mass has not reached to really have a revolutionary change. And it is happening. It will happen. It will. It's a matter of maybe a decade or so. These Marxist historians, the key ones, are going to be gone, and their followers are going to be weakened, and much more authentic historians, researchers are going to come forward, and I can see that is happening. So it will happen, but typically masses don't make these changes. It is the leaders. We need few leaders to lead this. Just like I have to mention few names.
Mm.
Sitaram Goel is one of them. Sitaramji, in his short books, he didn't write thick books. He wrote thin,
100-page books.
yeah. And
Hmm.
there he has actually given us so much information that inspired many people, including our Belgian scholar Konrad. Konrad L's first time real history of Bharat, the Ramjan Bhumi. He wrote these two books. So some leadership is very important, and it's coming now. A lot of people are writing, Vikram, Sampad, Sai Deepak, and others are all there. So it's a matter of time, and that's why what you are doing, spreading this information so that people are awakened that okay, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. So, um, for example, I have challenged one historian, very famous historian from Delhi, from JNU actually, on two things. One is, I don't want to take the name, still alive. One is um, that Cunningham, a lot of people praise
Mm.
Cunningham and John Marshall. Cunningham was not an archaeologist. He
Mm.
got an appointment. I mean, and Cunningham is the one who mentioned about to Bateshwar edict. Bateshwar edict was found in Agra. It talks about two temples that was built by Raja Rangpal, um, and one is so beautiful that Shivji is not able to go to Kailash from this mandir. Another one says Bhagavan Krishna, other mandir, is unable to move from he cannot take his gaze away from it. What are those two temples? It is an edict found in Agra, and Cunningham actually made sure it was hidden. It was kept in a place that nobody would find it. I mean, otherwise he may have taken it back to London. So what happened? Even people like Marshall and Cunningham, those who we trusted as archaeologists and all this, their job was not to glorify Bharat. Their job was to actually collect many of these precious murtis and sculptures for their own collections, for their museums. They did so much injustice to us, and we rely on these people. So one
Hmm.
example is Marsh that the Takshashila University was destroyed by the White Huns. That was John Marshall said that. Now, when I was doing research, what is his basis of saying that? And he says that there are few coins of White Huns found, and they hated Buddhism, and there was a skeleton found which is of White Huns, and we're talking about century ago. And he decided that it was Huns, White Huns. But we find that Huns were not against Buddhism. Actually, they were very close to the people of following Buddha. And then I read John Marshall's biography. He was such a Greek enthusiast. He loved anything Greek. And he could not find any fault in Alexander. Alexander was the great. Why he was great? Millions of people died because of him, and he was never able to go beyond uh, Puru's
Yes.
kingdom, Vyas. Why he was so great? Why one should be called great? So when I started digging, I found that Takshashila, this is my hypothesis, it's not fully proven
Hmm.
yet, but I
Hmm.
raised this question. Was it Alexander who destroyed Takshashila? And Marshall has this guilt probably. Oh, I cannot say that Takshashila was such a great university, was destroyed by Alexander because he was so great. So we Hindus, we the modern historians need to come back and see how much truth they have given us and how much we need to find. Like Baby Lal himself, I had fortune to spend a lot of time with him, and he told me the history of Delhi, Indraprastha, and Hastinapur, and all this, even Taj Mahal. Lot of stories I heard from him is yet to be actually proven because he's the one who started digging around Delhi, which was stopped, and then again I think it started again. So the history has to be uh, scientifically researched. So that's why people say, "Oh, you are a computer science guy. What is your business in history?" I said, "Well, computer science has this thing: zero or one, true or false." So I look at history in with that lens that ये सच है क्या नहीं है और इसका basis क्या है. This is my part, my approach to history.
I think having that background sort of enriches you. I mean, we see that in someone like J. Deepak as well. He's also said that uh, having studied engineering, I think it was before taking up law, made him, that sort of analytical with everything. So I understand where you're coming from, sir.
And
My
think
question,
objectively. Think objectively, not with a
true.
bias, because Marxist
Hmm,
historians had to prove just like the colonials that Bharat did not have a great history. The history was built by the invaders. Once you subscribe to this idea, because you are convinced, then everything is looked through that lens. But when you take that lens away, when you have a more objective view, only then you will find the truth.
hmm. So, sir, you make the case in your book for Dharma, and not for religion in the Abrahamic sense. Uh, and you say that it is Dharma that sustained India's soul. So, I mean, we covered a little bit of this in the previous one as well. Could you explain what Dharma means in civilizational terms and why Dharma is the one that is so uniquely suited to resistance?
Basically, simply speaking, when it comes to resistance to invasion, so both intellectual as well as physical, um, uh, uh, what you call battle that happened, we Bharat has very well defined class of people which are Kshatriyas. And Kshatriyas are of two types. We had Kshatriyas who could intellectually fight and defeat people on their ideology. Then we had our great warrior heroes. And as you mentioned, Bappa Rawal, Maharaj Bappa Rawal drove these invaders all the way to Persia. And so we had this Kshatriya capacity. So Kshatriyata is the dharma of that class of people who take it as an occupation to protect the society, protect the country, and protect their heritage, their mandirs, their women, children, institutes. That is their dharma. That is their duty. So what dharma means? That which sustains. And who helps sustaining the civilization? First, this Kshatriya. First line is Kshatriyas. The other side is the adhyatmic and the visionary uh, power that we have from the rishis, from those who has a vision of future. They're drashtas. They can see the future through practice of dhyana and lot tapas. They give direction to the society. So again, their dharma, rishis dharma, is to search for truth and give guidance to the society. Kshatriya's dharma is to protect the society. Then we have the Vaishyas. Their dharma is supply chain and provide food and all this. So these are not castes, but these are very well defined professions. And within that, we have these jatis, different jatis who are producers, who are keeping a specific profession alive. So jati and caste are not same. Jati and varna are not same.
Mhm.
This is a complete subject. So I have gone into details in my this Amrita Shaputra book. So this whole structure in the society, even many scholars say that because of the jati system, we survived the wholesale conversion. For
Yeah.
example, one jati, if you, so it was basically so decentralized that if you attack a centralized system, it is easy if it is gone, it is gone.
Hmm.
That's what happened to that's what happened to Mesopotamia, Egypt, and many nations that could not survive the crusades and jihads, because it was all centralized. In our case, it was decentralized. So our forefathers had a vision of a society. I said it is not an evolved society. It
Yeah.
was Bharat society was structured, engineered society. It was pre-planned, and that's why we still live. Like our language, Sanskrit. It's not a natural language. It is an engineered language. It is through sadhana our rishis found these sound systems that is resonating with the nature, and that's how all the mantras are there. So Sanskrit is engineered, actually. It's invented. It is not like a naturally developed language, unlike other languages. So dharma plays a great role in both protection and progress of a society. And if we understood dharma not as a religion, then only it makes sense. But if you are following a religion, which is a dogma, which is a book, which is a prophet, then yes, you follow that. Nobody is stopping you from that. But that is not dharma. Dharma is universal, actually. Dharma is for everybody. Doesn't matter what book you follow, but if you follow dharma, for example, many people give this crude example. If you put hand on fire, it will burn. So fire's dharma is burning. What is
Correct.
human dharma? So it's universal. So what is human dharma? In my opinion, many people will say human dharma is to go back to the origin, which is Paramatma and all this. So as an average people, I may not be able to conceive that, but my dharma is to realize my highest potential. Whatever I am born for, if I can become that, that actually is my dharma, to realize the potential and then use different tools that are given by our civilization, whether it's dhyana, whether it's mantra, whether you use tools to empower yourself. Yoga is the method that I always say that in a broader sense. So we have many tools which people confine into religion, that Devi Puja Archana, this is the only part of Dharma. That is not. That is that these are practices, these are tools for empowering ourselves. Dharma is broader.
So, Kanchan sir, how can Dharma reclaim the public space in a secular polity that very ironically remains very hostile to the native civilizational roots?
Dharma is hostile, you're saying?
No, the secular polity that we have around us. Like, how can Dharma reclaim the public spaces back in this whole secular culture that we have going? Like, like every CEO wants to be secular and no one wants to be very outspoken about their religious identity. Like,
We
specifically if
want
you're from
we
Sanatan.
want to be secular about our temples as well. Suddenly, we want to
Yes.
secularize everything about temples as well.
So how?
Unfortunate. Yeah,
Yes. Ji.
this is very unfortunate that even this era. Um, have you heard of Steve Covey, Seven Habits of Success, Most Successful People? Steve Covey.
Ji. Ji.
Steve has used in his book this term, principles of sustenance, principles of progress, so many times in his book. I think about in 10 pages he has mentioned 17, 18 times he mentions. And this is a best-selling book in the world. He's talking about is dharma, the principles that sustain something, even business. You have to follow certain principles to sustain a business. And ethics is one of them, but uh, for anything to sustain, you need to follow certain rules, and that is dharma. So anyone who just argues against it is stupid, I would say, or they don't want to admit it. So dharma is so universal, it doesn't matter whether you accept or not. So this secularism, again, that secularism is an imported term, and this debate going on, I think I saw in the news today that RSS leader Dattatreya Hosbolaji has said that we don't want
Yes,
secular and socialism in
socialist.
our constitution.
Mm.
So think about it. Socialism is a very new term. Bharat doesn't need to learn from outside about this so-called socialism. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve shantu niramaya. How many centuries ago our rishis said, Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha. We don't need to learn the socialism from outside. And that is only one example, that we never discriminated against people. We always wanted a dharma-based society with welfare to all. And that was, of course, there were periods of discrimination, and still in the name of caste, there are discrimination and violence, unfortunate. But our society overall were more welfare for all. Sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarva mangala mangalam, sarva mangala mangalam, mangal for all. And mangal means all purpose welfare, material prosperity and freedom and justice. That's mangalam. So we don't need to learn socialism from others. And that socialism is very limited. Marxist materialistic point of view defined terminology. And then secular. Secular, as you know, the history of so-called secularism is a Western concept. Again, it was appropriate for the West. So when the church in the West were basically suffocating people through their religious dictates, people wanted to get out of it. They didn't want to be under control of church. Everything was controlled by church. When was in Bharat, everything was controlled by our mandirs, mandirs were actually supporting all the things we were doing, all the institutes were supporting. So we were never stifled by religious institutes. It may have happened at some point in our history that some Brahmins, some religious leaders may have done something wrong, but that's not the overall theme of Bharat. Overall is Sarva Mangala Mangalam. And so secularism, separating the rule of law from church, was never necessary for us. And it is still not necessary for us because the governance is not dictated by a religion. During even Ashoka's period, a lot of people blame that Samrat Ashok in kind of imposed Buddha Dharma on people, which is also partially true. He encouraged Buddha because he himself took, and that's the only time period when we find that um, there are some influence of state as a religion or theocracy, but in the entire history of Bharat, you rarely will find this kind of impositions. So we don't need actually this so-called secularism. We are actually, secularism is a very limited term. We are secular by nature. We don't we don't impose um, uh, our
Ideologies on.
ideology on the masses, which is Abrahamic religions. Their main goal is to influence through their ideology, to rule people, to control people, to manage people. Ours is not. So this again, when our constitution was uh, kind of, I wouldn't say written, but concocted basically. It was it was like a lot of things put together randomly, and even then, Ambedkar ji did not put this secular and socialist, these terminologies. It was added much later by again same people with vested interest, um, and they wanted to preserve the Islamic heritage and to whitewash a lot of things. They wanted to protect even Waqf board. It was same thing. It was part of this whole ploy where in constitution was changed and secularism and socialism was added much later than when the constitution. It is not necessary for us.
Hmm.
So, sir, we sort of have a growing threat on the demographic side. Um, I mean, caste census has just been slaughtered by the central government, and all of us are expecting a pretty big shock out of it, to be very honest. We have an educational challenge, as we have rightly mentioned on this call. We have geopolitical threats. What is your blueprint for India's civilizational revival in that sort of a sphere? And what role should intellectuals, uh, religious leaders, and ordinary citizens like us play in it?
It's a very tough question you have asked. I don't really have a clear answer. Um, we have to be a knowledge society back again. First, we need to be more scientific, not um, the way people think. Uh, so, first of all, our own Hindu society. Hindu society, when it comes to adhyatmikata, uh, you may call it spirituality for lack of other terms, we only believe in some certain puja and festivals and all this. That's done. You go to mandir, you just bend your head and offer some flowers, puja, attend puja, and done. So that is the mindset of majority of Hindus. That okay, Bhagavan se kuch mangna hai, and as long as he's happy or she's happy, I'm okay. So that's the attitude. And that attitude is a religious attitude, not a dharmic attitude. And that's the distinction. So first we need to come out of that. Second is, we are so much into bhakti today. I don't know if it is even pure bhakti, because bhakti is the most, I mean, in my opinion, bhakti is the most difficult path. You ask a person to just like Meera Devi, surrender, 100% surrender to a deity or Bhagwan is the most difficult part, because average people will always have a doubt. And you may say that Bhagwan will save me, but you still have some doubt. So bhakti is the toughest one, to full surrender to Bhagwan. Yes, you can start, but we need to go back to Gyan Marg, because knowledge, Gyan Marg has been, majority of Hindus are in Bhakti Marg today, and
Hmm.
we need to go back to Gyan Marg, where we need to do more knowledge, research, knowledge, acquiring knowledge, technology, science, invention. That has to come back. And Gyan Yoga is not only studying the Vedas, that is important, right? Vedas and Upanishads, and but Gyan is also material knowledge. So society needs to go back to the tradition we had of science and technology, and it is happening now. More science and technology play a role in the society. More we become out of these superstitions that we have. Second is that we need to introduce uh, our teachings of the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita and other main uh, texts in the school system from early childhood, that people learn about dharma from there. I'm not again talking about religion. I'm not talking about theology. It is knowledge that is hidden, gems hidden in this text that we have. Third is, one should do practice. If I had a chance, I would make it mandatory to practice even Hatha Yoga in the schools. Yoga is the key way to get out of this psychological trauma we have.
Hmm.
And by yoga, I mean the entire yoga, the yama, the yama, niyama, and then of course the Hatha Yoga part is asana and pranayama and dhyana. That is only subset of it. But if you think of a society, yoga has much bigger meaning. But if you take just Patanjali, Rishi Patanjali's presentations, so yam and niyam, can you imagine any society, even think of your own family? Satya, ahimsa, asteya, paragriha, right? These are yamas. So if I am constantly lying to my family members, and if I am not in the path of truth, can my family even survive? Can a society survive? Can a nation survive? So Satya is the foundation. That is Yama. And from childhood, if kids do not learn this message, what is Satya? What is real Ahimsa? Ahimsa is not Gandhiji's Ahimsa. That was a convoluted idea of Ahimsa. Ahimsa is not being harmful to anyone, including
Hmm.
yourself. That's Ahimsa. But when it comes to enemies coming to attack you, you must protect yourself and your family. So ahimsa's meaning has been convoluted. So satya, ahimsa, asteya, not possessing anything that doesn't, you have not earned the right to possess. And look at the society, how much corruption is in the society. So if this idea of satya, ahimsa, asteya is taught to the children from childhood, their moral power will dictate to a lot of great things in life. And then you go to niyamas, saucha and other things. I don't want to get in too much into details. That's in my new book coming up. That will happen in that book. That what the yoga truly means to a society, a family, an individual. And it is no rocket science. Without these fundamental foundations, nothing can exist. Satya, ahimsa, asteya, aparigraha. These are the foundation of a high level civilization. And you think about it. You promote ahimsa in a state when everybody is thinking of ahimsa, not hurting the other person, not hurting the environment, not hurting Mother Earth, not hurting the rivers by dumping garbage. These are all ahimsa, act of ahimsa or hingsa rather, to to destroy our soil, to destroy our environment is hingsa. Ahimsa is the opposite of that, that you don't hurt intentionally, knowingly, you don't hurt, you don't destroy. So our society, our people need to learn these fundamentals of our civilization, which is Dharma and Yoga, has to come back from the high school level. And I'm not talking about religious texts only. There's so much to learn from the Upanishads and from Bhagavad Gita and other books that gives us power and that gives us the strength to in become inquisitive. Like Upanishads are questions and answers. So we can learn a lot of things from there, and that's the only way out for us. That will only reset. So one is knowledge and one is yoga. These two have to come back into the masses from childhood, in my opinion.
So agreeing with you over there, Kanchan, yes, like we have to educate our children literally from the ages where they start absorbing any information. And of course, like the ideological subversion, that is how it's going to be erased out of the psyche as well as yoga. One last question that I have is, can you talk about one battle in the Indian history that changed the civilizational fate of Bharat, but is barely talked about today in the annals of history?
There are many actually. As you know, I in my list I have seven such great
Yes.
battles happened in Bharat that has actually changed the course of world history. And
Mm,
you can start with Alexander's invasion, 323 BC, I believe. So
yes.
that time he came and Maharaja Purushottam was his real name, not
Mm.
Porus, as they would say.
Poor, it's called
Um,
poor.
and so there are controversies whether Raja Pururaj was actually defeated or not. There are controversies. But having said that, two impacts happened. Alexander could not go further east because of he was afraid of he heard of people of Gangaridai. Gangaridai is, most people think that it was the current day the area of Bengal in the eastern part of Bharat, and they had so many elephants and so much soldiers, so powerful. He heard about it and he said, no, 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 we are not. His soldiers even refused to go further. And of course there are many other kings at that time. So if Alexander went all the way to say Bengal, um, I think we would have a Greek occupation of Bharat, just like the Mughals occupied. So that did not happen, and the world actually was saved from the tyranny of Alexander because of this battle that happened there. And then of course there is another negative side of that was, um, I believe still, I don't have 100% proof that the Takshashila was one of the greatest centers of excellence and institutes, learning institutes in the world, oldest and greatest, and so much happened there. I think Alexander did destroy that, and because of that, we suffered a lot. And the
Mm,
other battle, there are many other such battles, like the battles of Tarain, Prithviraj Chauhan, um, and other battles that happened. And one other important was the second battle of Panipat, which was Maharaja Hemu. Most people have forgotten, and this is the what had the Marxist historians and Islamist historians have done to us. Maharaja Hemu, how many people have heard of him? It was just during the time of Mughals. He Maharaja Hemu was uh, uh, a new Hindu king in Delhi for a short time. Unfortunately, he died. And that battle, if he did not lose that battle, if he did not die that battle, actually, he did not lose the battle. He was killed through treachery. If
Hmm.
Maharaja Hemu was still in power in Delhi, there will be no Mughals after that. That was a very unfortunate incident, just like Prithviraj Chauhan's loss in the Battle of Tarain. And the last battle that is most important that has happened in Bharat was the Battle of Palashi. And most people don't know, Battle of Palashi was in Bengal when the East India Company, Robert Clive and others, they fought against the last Nawab of Bengal, Siraj Dowla. That changed the course of history for good. So Islamic rule completely was gone except of Hyderabad and few pockets, but it paved the way for the Europeans, especially the British, to occupy Bharat, and that changed the course of history. So what happened basically? Uh, it Bharat was at the peak of the civilization at some point. For centuries, for many years. The global GDP that Bharat shared along with China at times back and forth. If you go back to the first century of this common era, you will find that Bharat has the highest GDP. We don't have the data during the Gupta period and the Mauryan period. We don't have data, so there was no concept of GDP. I believe Bharat had 80% GDP in those days in Gupta period. World GDP. So when even after the Mughal rule and all these invasions, Bharat was holding about 25% of world GDP in 1750s. And these guys came, and why that was the case? Because of our invention, our manufacturing, our exports. We were so rich that we had 25% of global GDP still in 1750s after all these things happened. So British basically flipped it. They destroyed our own education system. They destroyed our own and the industries, whether it's textile or whether so many other industries where they're mostly textile that earn so much of foreign exchange for the nation for so many centuries. So they flipped it. And when in 1900 Bharat's GDP was 4% in the world, from 25 to 4% in just 150 years. And so the industrial revolution that happened in the West with the money from Bharat, mostly from Bengal, and a lot of people don't know that the richest man on earth was this so-called Jagat Seth. Jagat Seth was not an individual. Jagat, whose name is found during this Battle of Palashi. Jagat Seth was a title that Jagat, and the world's banker, so to say, translate. It was a title, and they were so rich they used to give money, lend money to the Mughals, and that Bharat became so poor when they left. The British left. So that battle actually was so decisive for the whole world. The Industrial Revolution happened in the West because of the funding from Bengal and also other parts of Bharat from South. Um, and then the whole world changed. The superpower that was Bharat, both in economic sense and military sense, moved into the West. That was 1757 Battle of Palashi. That changed the whole thing.
Mhm.
So, sir, you mentioned yoga and you mentioned your third book. That immediately took me back to a very nice memory that I have. In fact, uh, in our school, we used to have these yoga classes. And I mean, this is a very good, point to make as well, especially with our last conversation that we had. because I think we talked about this point where people have said कि योगा करते हुए ओम बोलने की क्या जरूरत है, आप अल्लाह अल्लाह भी बोल सकते हैं, आप जीसस भी बोल सकते हैं. So we used to, whenever we had a yoga class, it would always begin with the Patanjali Avahanam, and it was such a great joy, I mean, to have that sort of an atmosphere. So, my final question for you would be, uh, could you tell us a little bit about your third book on yoga and what we can expect from it as readers? Uh,
Uh, so that book, is nearly complete. Hopefully by next year it will be published. My wife Himanti is also working on it. We are doing it together. So I was initiated in my yoga tradition by my guru when I was 13 years old, and since then I am practicing. And I found that without yoga we cannot live even one moment. We cannot survive even one moment without practicing yoga. And most of us are practicing it unconsciously. For example, if I take just Patanjali, because that's a subset of the overall idea of yoga. Rishi Patanjali made it for our time. And yoga is much broader than just Patanjali Yoga Sutras. If you read Sri Aurobindo, you'll see the depth of yoga. But having said that, we breathe every moment, don't we? We know from modern science that we are breathing in oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide, and that's how um, energy is generated inside the body, so we live. Are we conscious of this breathing? Are we breathing, or are we breathing long? Common sense, right? Science. More deep and long you breathe, you bring in much more oxygen in the body. It is not just the oxygen, that is only one idea of this whole idea. So this is in yoga tradition, it is called the management of prana, vayu, or air, or prana. So without breathing we cannot live even one more than 3 minutes. I think if we don't breathe for, I think the record is 2 minutes something, we cannot live. We are breathing so many times a day. Are we conscious of this breathing? This is an example. We are practicing satya most of the time. We tell truth, we search for truth, we seek for truth most of the time in my life. But if it was 100%, then the individual and society will be different. But if we don't practice this, we don't live. Satya, asteya, satya, ahimsa, and the niyama part, the socha. Just take socha. Socha in the niyama part. Socha sometimes means, most people translate it as socha is uh, suchita, meaning you have clean clothes and you take bath and clean clothes. That's socha. That is one part of it. Socha is keeping everything suchi, meaning the way it should be. That means the plants, the trees, the river, your home, your living room, your bedroom, how dirty it is. This is all part of Sauchata, Suchita, meaning cleanliness of everything. And most misunderstood part is Brahmacharya. And again, I go into details in the next book, but basically, uh, managing the control is not the right word. Managing the senses is brahmacharya. If you don't manage the senses, your mind is always going outside. And for an example, when you are, for example, you are cooking some food,
mm,
you are actually practicing three things. few things. One is your senses are controlled. You are not thinking of anything else but that cooking. That I want to make a very good sabji or meal or whatever. You withdraw from rest of the things. You are focusing in that process of cooking. Only then that food will be very healthy and tasty, both, because you are completely into that. So what you have done pratyahar, meaning you have withdrawn from other things, your senses. So in a way, and you are controlled in your body and mind. That is brahmacharya also. And then you completely focus, and in a way you are doing dhyana there in cooking. You can do dhyana in a painting. You can doing dhyana in when you are doing your gym. These are all. So we cannot survive without practicing yoga, knowingly or unknowingly. So that's the theme of the next book. But I believe that people have most misunderstood these two terminologies of our civilization. Most potent terminologies are dharma and yoga. So we need to bring those back for the good of the nation, good of the society, good of people, good of the world. And don't forget what what Sri Aurobindo said. Don't remember the exact saying. It says something like, where yoga, brahmagyan, and dharma harbors, these three, brahmagyan, yoga, and dharma, that is the victory of Indian mind. So we need to bring these three back to our society and to the world.
That is a very wholesome end to this conversation, I think. Thank you so very much for again answering all of our questions in so much detail. And I'm very happy that this time we got a chance to talk in depth about dharma and about yoga, especially because I mean, with the experience that you had shared of a kid realizing Ma Saraswati's swan, I think last time, this is a very interesting conversation connected to that. And to all of our readers, thank you so much for joining us. We recommend that you please purchase Sir's book, The Crash of Civilization, and we will put the link to that in the description below. Thank you so much for joining us again. We recommend that you listen to the first episode as well with Sir, because the conversation is directly joined to that, um, and you will have a lot of connection between the two videos as well. So yes, thank you so much, Sir, and thank you so
Thank
much
you,
to our
sir.
viewers.
Thank you both for having me, and those who are going to listen to this. Hopefully it will have some change in your mind in terms of what our duties are, and that's the only that's how I will measure the success of writing these books, that you think more about our heritage. Thank you. Namaskar,
Thank
and
Namaste.
Jai Jagannath. Jai
you.
Jagannath.
Jai Jagannath.